Globally, there are approximately 3 billion active video game players. According to research performed by the Able Gamers Foundation, up to 46 million players in the United States alone have some sort of disability. Offering gaming access to these individuals is vitally important because throughout their daily lives, the disabled community faces a plethora of difficulties while attempting to participate in activities people take for granted, or are often faced with obstacles that keep them from participating at all. From lack of access to public spaces to difficulties receiving necessary medical care, the needs of the disabled community have historically been seen as an afterthought to increase their quality of life. Able Gamers Foundation President and founder Mark Barlang was all too well the disparity in gaming access between able-bodied gamers and the disability community.
Right now, we're at a crossroads. The world needs people to affect change. There are so many wrongs that need to be righted, and it needs champions who are going to take them on. So I asked many of my friends who've been with me on this journey some of their lessons learned, and I want to share those lessons learned with you. No one is going to give you permission to make change, because the permission will never come, because that's how our world works. That's how status quos work. We don't want change. Change is hard.
I really want to make this film because it's an important subject that the world really doesn't see, and I wanted to showcase these people and the hope that they could get the supplies they needed to play the games they love without feeling like they can't perform at the highest level. It's just incredible, the spectrum of people with all different kinds of disabilities I've met. That span cultural, socioeconomic, gender identity, whatever you name it. Everybody is there to support one another and ensure that they all have the opportunity to game. I've learned that I enjoy playing video games as much as anybody else. I didn't really play before I started the production, but I think now that it's a great way for me to find an outlet to relax and take my mind off any of the worries that I've had. Video games have allowed me to experience a world outside myself and able to feel like I did as a child. I love playing video games with my daughter because after my traumatic brain injury, my physicality hasn't allowed me to do many of the things that other parents are able to do, like go to a park and go to the sandbox and play. So this is something that we're able to do together and hang out in a way that we mutually can enjoy, and it's just a wholesome way to sit alongside her and we can bond over things on the screen without me having to lift her up or squat or anything like that. As an able-bodied person, you're able to just go hang out with some people, pick up a controller and play, even if you're not a gamer. But now it takes incredible amounts of time planning and making sure that you have the right technology. And honestly, it's really heartening that people are thinking of ways that they can make it easier for people like myself. Even though they personally don't have those difficulties, they understand the needs of others that can help them achieve the goals they want.
Oh, a little higher, a little higher.
Okay.
Just tiny, tiny, tiny bit. Oh, a little lower.
Okay.
You got her!
My name is Ross Miner. I'm completely blind and I am an accessibility advocate and consultant, and I'm a gamer. I grew up playing ever since I can really remember. Back then I really played it just for the entertainment. These days I play it more for the social aspect and being able to take part in a larger group. I was blinded from a gunshot when I was 8. My mother was divorcing my father, and as an act of retaliation to hurt my mother as much as possible, he shot me in my sleep, shot and killed my brother in his sleep, and then committed suicide. And so I pretty much went to sleep with sight and woke up in a hospital bed blind. After I went blind, I quickly realized that I was no longer able to play video games, but that still didn't stop me from still booting up my 64, booting up my PS2 or my Game Boy, and just hearing the sounds of the video games. And I remember I was in the hospital and I was playing with my Game Boy, and I decided to load up Pokemon, and I learned that I could play it through all the sound cues alone. It's not impossible for a person with disability to play video games. A lot of the times I play video games for escapism, you know, to not feel like I'm blind in many other facets of my life. So being able to play a video game, putting me on an even playing field, does encapsulate the feeling of having no handicap. It all began with disabled people saying, hey, like, this needs to be changed, this needs to be changed. It's very hard to get in touch with people in the industry. Eventually I came to the conclusion, I was like, I have this lived experience of gaming the majority of my life blind, I almost need to become part of the solution instead of just hoping that something will change. And I think that's been the final kick in the butt to really get the ball rolling.
A lot of different accessibility mods out there. And if anyone is interested, you can check out the Disabled Gamers subreddit on Reddit. And I have a wiki that I've created with a lot of resources.
My name is Garrett Flynn. I'm a co-founder of Brains at Play, and I'm an ally. In terms of connecting with my friends over games, it really expanded my social network because I had one friend that I played with, and then we suddenly had a whole party of people that were playing the same game together. So that just kind of broadened my social sphere in general. The concept of no handicap to me is really interesting because you can take it in two ways. One is that we're trying to minimize the amount of handicap that somebody has experienced. When they have a lack of ability to do something, we want to restore that, and we want to give them the capacity to live and do daily activities. But I mean, the other side that you can see that is there already is no handicap, and to support and foster the strengths that an individual already has. For the past 2 years, I've helped run the BCI Game Jam with the University of Calgary's BCI for Kids program. Something about brain systems that's really interesting is, I mean, we all have a brain, so the more that we tap into brains as a control system, the more that we can make tools for everybody. It's a really great group that builds brain-controlled games for kids with cerebral palsy. What the intention was there is that you could have 2 of the kids with cerebral palsy play together, and then this year was minigame madness. So we made a set of small games that they could play and then choose which ones they wanted to play more. This is using non-invasive electroencephalography or EEG devices and allows them to really engage meaningfully with the game. They've seen a lot of enjoyment out of the kids just for being able to play with their peers. For me, the most interesting development that we could see in this space is instead of having somebody who's getting publicity for using this device as an abled person, we instead have an ethos of, sharing this technology, open sourcing it, making it able to be downloaded and used by anybody with internet access.
Gaming, but it just never was a priority around the launch of Xbox One. By 2015, we had to do it.
A gamer contacted us who had issues with not having complete use of their hands. They were relating a story about how they were playing Uncharted 2 and were able to get all the way through the game up until the last 5% of the game, all the combat, everything with their limited mobility, but they ran up against a problem where they had to tap a button fast and they could not tap the button fast enough.
I remember these times vividly, that video game makers made video games for other video game makers. I don't think this was intentional. They just didn't have the tools or the understanding around disability that they needed.
While I was studying a master's degree in music production, I got very interested in 3D audio and wanted to create virtual 3D spaces that you could explore using just audio cues alone. But okay, well, I'm making these audio-only scenes. Who is this good for?
And we realized just how insignificant a change that would be to make, and it took somebody half an hour to put an option in where it's like push and hold versus repeatedly tap, and that opened up the door to talk to more people who had similar experiences to reaching a brick wall they couldn't pass and finding simple solutions to add features that would allow somebody with a similar issue to be able to get past it.
Came across this job posting from a company called Sun and Moon, and they are contracted by Special Effect, who are a UK-based disabled gamers charity, and they were looking for a developer to carry on the work of the previous dev, making this collection of eye gaze controlled games. From a personal happiness perspective, they've got these young kids who have some kind of physical disability and they're interacting with the games, and they haven't been able to play anything like that before.
The role that I have here is all about game design from an accessibility standpoint. I'll be looking at what issues has it highlighted, what suggestions has come back from that, and how can we fix those kind of barriers, because putting in accessibility after you've made a product is incredibly difficult. It's like baking a cake and then deciding that actually you want to change the flavor of the cake. You may as well just bake a new cake.
The right to have fun is a basic human right, and I think it's not fair that there are accessible games that lots of people can play. It's not fair that you've got a challenging way of life and you're also disallowed this extra bit of entertainment which provides lots and lots of other people so much joy. I just think it's only right and fair that there be equal opportunities to have fun using video games.
We as devs and as able-bodied players can never validate the features. Consider accessibility now. Even if you can't do these big things, anything that you can do is going to help.
As wonderful as the game industry has done in catching up in terms of accessibility, and it has been miraculous, there's still a long way to go. And the thing is like, You'll never solve gaming accessibility because games are constantly changing.